To the outside world, the Clore family was the epitome of the American dream. Successful, beautiful, and seemingly perfect. Neighbors admired them, friends envied them, and strangers wished for a life like theirs. But behind that polished facade lay a storm of secrets, manipulation, and simmering rage. The cracks in their picture-perfect life grew too wide to hide, and when they finally broke, it wasn't just a family falling apart, it was a tragedy that no one could have imagined. James Craig Clore, the patriarch, appeared to have it all. With a six-figure salary and a stable career, he was the provider of a dream life. His wife, Karen, embodied the perfect housewife and supermom, managing the home and supporting their three kids, Emily, Lauren, and Sean. From straight-A report cards to local sports stardom, the Clore kids seemed to thrive under their parents' guidance. They were everything a family was supposed to be. Or so it seemed. Let's rewind the clock, and you'll find the story of how this perfect family was built on sacrifices, compromises, and silent struggles. For starters, Karen gave up her dreams of earning an engineering degree to marry Craig and support his ambitions. The couple tied the knot in December 1985 and moved to Colorado, where Craig had landed a promising job. At the time, Karen was still in her second year of college with several years left to complete her degree, but she couldn't bear the idea of a long-distance relationship. So Karen made a life-changing decision. She left school to focus on her marriage and Craig's career. It was a sacrifice she wholeheartedly embraced, determined to create a happy life together. Their first major milestone came on April 8, 1991, when Karen gave birth to their eldest daughter, Emily. Life seemed picture-perfect. Craig's career continued to flourish while Karen took on the role of a stay-at-home mom. However, Karen's mother, Pat, noticed how Karen was always putting Craig's needs before her own. Even after just having a baby, it seemed off, like Karen wasn't living for herself anymore. In 1992, Craig's career brought another change, a lucrative job opportunity in Greenville, Texas. The family relocated, and in May 1993, they welcomed their second daughter, Lauren. By all appearances, the Clores had it all: Craig's professional success, Karen's dedication to her family, and two bright, thriving daughters. Emily, the firstborn, was a smart kid, a pleaser, always wanting to do good, kind of like her mom. Creative and intelligent, Emily played the drum set and sang, while Lauren played the bass and sang. Yet beneath the surface, tensions quietly simmered. One of those tensions arose from a disagreement over having more children. Karen felt their family was complete with two kids, but Craig wanted another. In a strikingly unorthodox move, the couple created a written agreement. Karen consented to having one more child on the condition that she could undergo a procedure to prevent any further pregnancies afterward. Craig agreed, and in March 1999, their son Sean was born. To honor their agreement, Craig later underwent a vasectomy, ensuring no more surprises in their growing family. By this point, life seemed to stabilize. Craig's next job opportunity led them to Weatherford, Texas, a quiet suburb near Dallas, where his career continued to ascend. Once again, Karen adapted, immersing herself in her new community. She joined a local moms group and eventually became its president, building a strong network of friends and resources. She also made sure her kids stayed active and involved. Emily excelled in school and music, Lauren thrived in sports and band, and Sean became a rising baseball star. From the outside, it looked like the perfect life. But Craig's obsession with perfection left little room for anything less than flawless. He held everyone to incredibly high standards, including his own family. His daughter Lauren, who struggled with ADD and didn't get straight A's like Emily, became a target for his criticism. To Craig, Lauren wasn't good enough, and he didn't hesitate to ridicule her for it. Craig's need for control didn't stop at his family. People began to see him as uptight, rude, and almost arrogant. His obsession with appearances made him difficult to work with. He had little respect for women in leadership roles, even telling others that they didn't belong in those positions. He also gained a reputation for being cheap, borrowing tools for home projects instead of buying them, tagging along to strip clubs with co-workers and asking them to buy him dances. Despite earning a solid $180,000 a year, Craig kept a tight grip on the family's finances. Karen had a strict weekly allowance, and every time she went shopping, she had to save the receipts. Craig would scrutinize each one when he got home, blowing up in anger if he thought something was unnecessary or too expensive. But it wasn't just about money. Craig's control extended to every aspect of their life, even their sex life. Every night at 8:30 p.m., Karen had to be in bed for their routine. If she took a phone call after 8:00 p.m., she would whisper to her friends, apologizing and saying she had to go because Craig required her to be in the bedroom at a specific time. If she didn't do what he wanted, bedtime at 9, she would pay for it. It became such a routine that their kids even knew not to disturb them after 8:30. Even when Karen was sick, she had to comply with Craig's demands. Refusing him was dangerous. His anger would often turn violent, and Karen knew it was easier to just give in. Now, things hadn't always been this way. When they first got together, Karen's life wasn't controlled so strictly. But as time went on, Craig's demands grew more extreme. He even suggested bringing a third person, specifically a woman, into their relationship just to watch Karen and her together. Karen wasn't comfortable with this at all, but she found it difficult to say no. Desperate for some space and something of her own, Karen secretly joined a gym. She'd always enjoyed working out, and it was a way to regain some control over her life. Craig, ever controlling, refused to pay for the membership, so Karen worked odd jobs, like baking cakes, to fund it herself. By January 2006, she had saved enough to join Powerhouse Gym, and she quickly became a regular. Eventually, she even took on a part-time job as a personal trainer. Surprisingly, Craig didn't mind her working at the gym, but he set one condition. She had to be home by the time the kids returned from school. And just like always, Karen excelled at whatever she did. She quickly made friends at the gym and soon developed a habit of complaining about Craig at work. She'd talk about how angry he always was, how nothing she did ever seemed good enough, and how they were constantly fighting. Their fights were so intense that sometimes one of the kids would have to intervene just to break it up. On a bad day, things would get physical, and Karen would end up with bruises to prove it. Everyone at the gym knew about her unhappiness and how she wanted out of the relationship, but Craig's control over her was suffocating. She was nearing her breaking point. Things only seemed to get worse when she met a personal trainer named Sunny. Sunny was calm and understanding, and she helped Karen open up about the darkest parts of her relationship, things she couldn't share with anyone else. Over time, Sunny and Karen became more than friends. The two grew romantically and sexually intimate. There's some speculation about how this happened. Some believe that Craig encouraged it after he had previously asked Karen to bring a third person into their relationship. Others think Karen and Sunny had already started an affair before Craig even knew about it. Regardless of how it began, their relationship evolved into a threesome. Craig even sent Sunny flirty texts, bought flowers for both women, and encouraged them to take weekend getaways. However, later on, he denied pushing the two together. While Karen and Sunny's relationship was out in the open, Craig told a different story. He claimed that Karen was ruining their marriage and that the biggest issue was that his carefully curated image of the perfect family was crumbling. By the way, I post true crime and new cases here every day, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing. It helps a lot. In 2008, Craig saw an opportunity to regain control. He was offered a job in Columbia, Missouri, that paid more than his current position and would separate Karen from Sunny. He accepted the job offer immediately. Karen, however, was devastated. She didn't want to leave Sunny but also had roots in Weatherford. Her kids were involved in school activities. The girls were in a band. Sean was playing baseball, and Karen had deep ties to local volunteer groups. Still, as always, Craig's wishes prevailed. He moved to Colombia a few months before Karen, leaving her to wrap things up at home. During this time, Karen and Sonny decided to stay together long distance, though Craig had no idea. He thought it was just a temporary fling, and that once he separated them, Karen would return to the obedient wife he expected her to be. When Karen eventually moved to Colombia with the kids, Craig believed everything was back to normal. He even allowed her to enroll in the University of Missouri for a health science degree and continue working as a fitness instructor. However, after her time with Sonny, Karen had experienced a taste of freedom. She wasn't satisfied with just being allowed to go to school or work. She didn't want a life where Craig felt entitled to control her every move. Once Craig realized he was losing control over his wife, Karen, he began to tighten his grip even harder. He started obsessively monitoring her every move, who she talked to, what was in her emails, where she went, and it quickly spiraled into a complete invasion of her privacy. This toxic obsession reached its breaking point in December 2008 during an old friend's New Year's Eve party in Weatherford. Neither Craig nor Karen expected Sonny to be at the party, but when they walked in, there she was, the last person Craig ever wanted to see. To make matters worse, Karen was openly flirty with Sonny. They were laughing, hugging, drinking from the same glass with 2 straws, and even getting cozy in front of everyone. At this point, Craig was furious. His jealousy and rage took over, especially because the relationship between Karen and Sonny was now completely public. In Craig's mind, it was a complete slap in the face, and the disrespect was unbearable. The anger exploded at the party, with Craig screaming at Karen and Karen screaming back. It wasn't just a private argument, it was a spectacle. Their fight became so intense that Craig, humiliated and furious, declared to the entire party that Karen was having an affair. In retaliation, Karen kissed Sonny right in front of everyone. The host, understandably uncomfortable, asked them to leave, but the drama didn't end there. The fight continued outside on the front lawn, and it soon turned physical. Craig, consumed by his anger, shoved Karen, causing her to fall and hit her head on the ground. By the morning, both of them were reeling from the fallout. Karen, despite the chaos, began to have second thoughts about the way she was pushing Craig. She told Sonny that they needed to take a break from their relationship. But Sonny wasn't having it. She told Karen that the problem wasn't with her, but with Craig. Sonny was deeply concerned for Karen's safety, especially after witnessing his violent outbursts. In late January 2009, Karen made the brave decision to file for divorce. She didn't leave the house immediately, but she started sleeping in a separate room. She also continued her long-distance relationship with Sonny. Craig, still obsessively controlling, kept monitoring Karen's emails and even went through her things. He found multiple greeting cards from Sonny and used that to track her every move. Each time Karen made plans to meet Sonny, Craig would follow her, trying to sabotage their time together. His jealousy knew no bounds. At work, Craig became increasingly unhinged. He would carry around a photo album, showing it off to coworkers and saying things like, "Isn't this a happy family? Why doesn't Karen want to be a happy family?" His bizarre behavior made everyone uncomfortable, but Craig didn't seem to notice or care. He was too consumed by his need to control Karen's life. The tension reached a boiling point in March 2009. After Craig gave a speech at a city council meeting, Karen, there to support him, was dragged into another heated argument. This time, Craig's anger turned physical. He assaulted Karen, and she called the police. Craig was arrested for third-degree domestic assault. In her statement to the police, Karen described how Craig physically blocked her exit, cornering her against a cabinet, and how his behavior had grown increasingly violent and controlling over time. Despite Craig's denial of the assault, claiming he was only trying to give Karen a hug, the marks on Karen's body told a different story. Craig was arrested and charged. Karen moved out of their home, taking the kids with her, and rented a place on the other side of Colombia. She also withdrew $50,000 from their shared bank account, signaling that she was finally breaking free from Craig's toxic and dangerous control. The arrest of Craig was nothing short of devastating. As a city official, his actions were front-page news, and when his bizarre and unsettling behavior at work came to light, it only made things worse. Eventually, the city issued a public statement saying Craig resigned due to difficult family issues, but the truth was far more complicated. The fact that he had been fired, not by choice, was a blow to his already fragile ego. He couldn't handle the fact that his once perfect reputation was now in tatters. No job, no family, and no control over anything, Craig packed up and left his house, heading back to his parents' farm in Kansas. He hoped that hard work on the farm would help clear his mind, but the distance didn't make things better. If anything, it fueled his obsession with Karen, his ex-wife. Craig couldn't understand why Karen had left him. In his mind, he had been the perfect husband. He had provided everything, and yet she walked away. He refused to accept that his controlling behavior could have pushed her to the brink. At this point, he still stalked her, reading her texts, emails, and even her cards. He couldn't let go and blamed Sonny for everything. When Sonny sent Craig a text telling him Karen didn't love him the way he thought, Craig became enraged. He started calling Karen and Sonny names, using homophobic slurs, even though he had been okay with Karen's relationship with Sonny, as long as he could watch and be involved in some twisted way. But what really pushed him over the edge was his daughters turning away from him. They were tired of his controlling ways and wanted to make their own choices. Emily, his oldest daughter, was the first to break away. She picked a college he didn't approve of, showing she wasn't going to live by his rules anymore. To Craig, this felt like a slap in the face. He blamed Karen even more, saying she had brainwashed the girls into going against him. Things only got worse when one of his daughters posted on Facebook admitting she was bisexual. Instead of supporting her, Craig saw this as another reason to lash out. He was convinced their mom had influenced this too. Interestingly, he started building a massive case against Karen, collecting over 3,500 pages of so-called evidence for his divorce attorney. This included screenshots of Karen and Sonny's private messages and notes about every time Karen visited Sonny. He even claimed that the two women had sex in front of the kids, but he never showed any proof of this. Craig's behavior became even more bizarre and disturbing. He told his friends about wanting to kill Sonny, but no one took him seriously. It's a common theme in these cases. People ignore the red flags until it's too late. It's also important to note that, despite his rage toward Karen and Sonny, Craig was also sleeping with multiple women. His behavior was all over the place, but when it came to his son, Sean, things seemed a bit different. According to Craig, Sean was the one person who hadn't completely turned his back on him. Craig made an effort to spend time with his son, taking him hunting and fishing, trying to stay involved in his life. While he may have been a terrible husband to Karen and a distant, controlling father to his daughters, by all accounts, he was still trying to be a decent dad to Sean. It was as if Sean was the last shred of hope for Craig, the one connection that hadn't been completely destroyed. Fast forward to Thanksgiving 2009. While Sean was with Craig, Karen was still trying to keep her family close. She wanted all of her children and her girlfriend Sonny to visit her grandmother Dorothy during the holiday. So, the day after Thanksgiving, Karen went to pick up Sean from Craig's house and take him to Dorothy's. Dorothy, who was 89 years old, lived in a quiet farmhouse in Burlingame, Kansas, a tiny town with less than 1,000 residents. But on Saturday, November 29, 2009, a deputy was wrapping up some paperwork when a call came in about a suspicious vehicle in Burlingame. It was just after 6:00 p.m. when a neighbor reported that a small truck had been speeding through the area. They watched as the driver pulled up, got out of the truck, and started walking down the road. A few moments later, the man came back carrying a large object they couldn't identify. Fearing that it may have been a robbery, the neighbors grabbed a flashlight and went outside to confront him. But before they could get close, the man placed the object in the back seat of the truck, climbed in, and sped off. The neighbors quickly called the sheriff's office and the deputy set out to investigate. But just minutes later, another call came in, one that would lead to a much darker discovery. The deputies immediately knew this was serious, but nothing could have prepared them for what they would find when they arrived. As they entered Dorothy's home, the first person they found was Dorothy herself. She was bleeding heavily on the kitchen floor, having been shot several times. She was still alive, but barely. They rushed to the next room where Karen was found in the dining area. She had been shot twice and was already dead. In the lounge, they discovered 18-year-old Emily lying behind the couch. She, too, had been shot twice. The second shot likely paralyzed her instantly, and she had died. Then the deputy heard a faint voice calling for help from upstairs. It was Lauren. 16-year-old Lauren was still alive, but her injuries were severe. Like Dorothy, she had been shot multiple times and was barely holding on. As she was taken away, Lauren whispered the name Craig. When asked who that was, she weakly replied, "My dad." According to his account, he and Karen had been sitting together cleaning some old coins when the nightmare began. Without warning, Craig burst through the back door, rifle in hand, and opened fire on Karen. In the chaos, Sean ran for his life, desperate to escape. He scrambled for Karen's phone to call for help, but before he could, more gunshots echoed through the house. Terrified, he knew he had to get out, and so he fled, running to the neighbor next door. Understandably, a search warrant was issued immediately for Craig, and it didn't take long for the authorities to locate his car abandoned in the middle of nowhere, eerily out of place. Inside, the officers found a chilling scene: a stash of more ammunition, unopened bottles of anxiety medication, and a backpack packed with essentials such as soap, toilet paper, and canned food, as if he had been preparing for something. But Craig himself was nowhere to be found. Hours later, though, he was spotted wandering aimlessly down a deserted road, disheveled and looking lost. When he saw the officers approach, he didn't try to run. Instead, he muttered, "I'm the guy you're looking for," and was arrested without a struggle. Craig's defense team argued that his mental health issues, including depression and multiple personality disorders, pushed him to the brink. They claimed he had snapped, unable to control his actions. However, the prosecution painted a much darker picture, one of a man whose actions were chillingly premeditated. To back up their claims, they presented a crucial piece of evidence. Craig's expert psychiatrist testified that while he did suffer from depression, he still had the clear ability to plan the murders. The fact that he spared Sean's life was a key detail, demonstrating that his actions were calculated, not impulsive. 2 years after the murders, the final trial began. Sean, now 12, showed extraordinary bravery as he took the stand to recount the horrifying events with striking clarity. He described the moment he witnessed his father shoot his mother and the chaos that followed. His testimony left no doubt that Craig's actions weren't a spur-of-the-moment lapse in judgment, but the culmination of months of simmering rage and calculated intent. Sunny also took the stand, shedding light on the abusive relationship between Karen and Craig. She recounted her attempts to protect Karen from Craig's volatile behavior, revealing that he initially appeared unfazed when she and Karen began their relationship. However, his demeanor shifted drastically, becoming hostile only after Karen decided to leave him. Sunny also admitted that her testimony was based on memory and what she had heard from Karen, without physical evidence to back it up. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. Craig was guilty of capital murder. His plea of insanity was rejected, leaving him to face the harshest punishments, either the death penalty or life without parole. Kaler showed no emotion today as he heard his fate. The execution sentence comes as retribution for the shooting deaths of 4 family members. The court, at this time, sentences the defendant for the crime of capital murder to death. James Craig Kaler opted not to speak on his own behalf, and even asked if he could leave the room to avoid hearing the victim impact statements. Chief Judge Philip Fr. ordered him to stay, I loved Grandma White, Karen, Emily, and Lauren very much, and will miss them until the end of my days, Sean said. For many in the courtroom, justice had been served, but for Sean, the outcome was far from a relief. Sean, now 12 years old, had already endured unimaginable loss. He stood in court, his voice steady yet filled with emotion, and said, "I do not want my dad to receive the death penalty because it would be hard on my grandparents. I do not want my whole family gone." These words, spoken by a child who had witnessed so much pain, left many stunned. Despite Craig's horrific actions, Sean still saw him as a father, a man who, in his eyes, had been kind and loving to him. Craig, on the other hand, showed no regret for the lives he had taken. After his sentencing, he began writing letters to various people, including the lead prosecutor. These weren't apologies. Instead, Craig claimed he felt relieved by what he had done, insisting that he had freed Sean from what he called a toxic environment. Craig's legal team quickly filed an appeal to the Kansas Supreme Court. They argued that the jury had been biased and claimed that his mental health issues hadn't been properly considered during the trial, but the court disagreed. One judge stated that Kansas law doesn't exonerate someone just because they're mentally ill, and another pointed out that Craig's mental health had been considered during sentencing. It just didn't excuse what he had done. In the end, Craig's appeal was denied. His options for further legal action grew slim, leaving him to face the consequences of his choices. As of now, he remains on death row, a stark reminder of the heinous crimes he committed. Justice may have been served, but it's hard to say if that truly balances the scale for the lives lost. We can only hope he spends his remaining days haunted by his actions, paying for the devastation he caused. As for Sean, his story is one of incredible resilience. Despite the trauma and struggles he endured, he managed to rise above it all. He graduated high school and now works in Kansas, a living testament to strength and perseverance in the face of unimaginable tragedy. His journey inspires hope, proving that even in the darkest times, there's a way forward. But what about this case sticks with you? Do you think this tragedy could have been prevented with the right intervention or support? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss. If you like the way we create these videos and you want to help bring more cases like this to light, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Thank you once again for watching.